could use some brain exercises or brain exercises. I just don't take time for myself. But if I don't do it now, how is that going to affect my future? Especially when I do have grandparents who have succumbed to Alzheimer's disease. By not implementing healthy brain habits now, our neurons get weary and they struggle more and more to pump blood through the brain as swiftly as they did before. Here to talk about brain health is Leigh Richardson, the founder of the Brain Performance Center. We have Leigh on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, as I mentioned, a lot of times I feel like my brain is on hold. And I don't know if it's because I'm in my 40s, that it's just kind of starting now, but often I find myself just grasping for the right word to say, especially when I'm on the air. It's always the most embarrassing moment where I don't remember a word or I can't put a sentence together thoroughly. And it's very embarrassing. But is that because I haven't done anything with my brain or what?
Well, that could be a number of things, but the first thing that comes to mind is how the brain shares information, because there's two parts of the brain involved in being able to think of the right word. In the frontal lobes, that's word recall. In the temporal lobes, that's verbal memory. So if those two parts of the brain aren't sharing information, you're not going to think of that word. Why aren't they sharing information? Maybe you haven't had enough sleep. Maybe your nutrition is off. Maybe there's some genetics involved. And, you know, it makes me so happy to hear you say that you're worried about your brain health, because most of the time we worry about our cardiovascular because we know that can damage our heart. Mm-hmm. Or we worry about diabetes because we know that can impair our pancreas. But very few people stop and think about their brain health. And it truly is the most important thing. Your brain drives your body.
Well, yeah. I mean, if your brain isn't healthy, the rest of you is not going to be, just period. So I would think that wanting to keep your brain healthy should be utmost. I think probably the reason why it doesn't come to mind is we don't often hear of people dying of, a brain attack, which a stroke should be called, but it isn't. So, when somebody says heart attack, we immediately go, oh, heart attack, so that becomes important to us. But because stroke isn't really that, everybody knows that it's possible. Everybody knows that it happens, but nobody really lives around the possibility of a stroke like they do heart attack.
And you make a very good point. They don't associate stroke with brain disease. Mm-hmm. They don't make that association. And part of brain health is educating yourself and looking at, you mentioned your grandparents, understanding what genetically is in your lineup, mm-hmm. because brain waves are just as genetic as the color of eyes you have or the size of feet you have. So being aware of what is in your genetic makeup and looking at, there's three things that create dysregulation. That's one. A second is head injury. Anytime you hit your head, you can change the way those neurons and dendrites are wiring and firing. Mm-hmm. And if you ever played a sport or if you had a rowdy sibling, I think we've all had a little head knocks in our life.
Oh, sure.
And then the other thing is emotional trauma. And unfortunately, for a child, a dog will die, a grandparent will die, divorce will happen. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we've all had emotional trauma as well. So being aware of those, and you mentioned me time. You don't take enough me time. Mm-hmm. And while you know that, and you want to, it's hard.
Well, and I don't know what to do with me time when I do have it. It's like, how do I improve my brain health if I'm taking 5 to 10 minutes to myself?
Well, and I can make some suggestions there. The foundation of brain health is two: is sleep and is nutrition. Stop and think about what you eat, when you eat. You're a busy lady, and a lot of times you're probably grabbing something on the go like mm-hmm. everybody else. Mm-hmm. But so keep in your car. An apple won't go bad in the sun. It won't go bad in the cold. Mm-hmm. Keep in your car some fruit, some protein bars. Above all, some water. So many people are dehydrated. And when you think about your sleep, it must be difficult with your schedule. And, try to look at sleep hygiene. Do you go to bed at the same time every night? Where's your phone when you go to bed?
Are you watching over my shoulder?
No, but you're normal. And, I've moved my phone to the charger in the kitchen because I've recognized I'm checking my phone. I can check my schedule. I can see that my kids text me.
Mm-hmm.
I can check my email. And it's just too easy not to do it. So I've taken it out of the bedroom. So stopping and thinking about what lifestyle changes that you can make to kind of set your foundation right. And then when you have a few minutes, mindfulness. And when I mention mindfulness, people are like, oh, what is that? It's nothing more than staying present. Stay in the future. Most of us are either looking back or worried about the future. And stop that. Stay in the moment. And there's different things that you can do. I'm not an app person, but there's some great apps. Headspace is my favorite, and it's free the first 10 days.
What is it?
It's an app that you can put on your phone, and it's guided mindfulness. It will take you through, and it uses different modalities, but it'll take 10 minutes out of your day. And during those 10 minutes, it will help you to learn how to stay present in the moment.
And it's called Headspace?
Headspace.
Okay.
It's really interesting.
All right. We're speaking with Leigh Richardson. She is the founder of the Brain Performance Center. I want to run a couple of things by you because we've all heard that certain elements or certain things will somehow improve our brain health. And we don't know if some of this is like old wives' tales or if it's true. But what about like increasing the amount of fish that you eat? We've got, on one side, we've got fish oil. It's so great for your brain, and fish are great for your brain. And then there's mercury, which is not, and we've got fish that are like swimming in mercury and have issues. So it's like, yes or no fish?
Salmon, yes. I think you look and say, because it's full of omega-3s. And omega-3s are definitely good for the brain. You can also buy omega-3s in a pill form. And the problem with that is sometimes if you buy a product that's gone rancid, and you get these smelly burps, and that totally turns people off. I recommend fish oil all the time, and people will come back, it was the worst experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you have bought product that was out of date. And omega-3 also comes in walnuts and kiwis. So, but fish oil, yes, very good for the brain.
All right. How about sleeping on your side?
I haven't heard that one, but I do think that it's not the quantity of sleep that you get, it's the quality of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are more comfortable sleeping on your side and you feel more rested when you get up in the morning, then do that.
All right. What about, you mentioned turning off your phone, but many of us use our phones for our alarm clocks anymore. So phones aside, let's talk about GPS, because I think anymore, the minute we know we're going somewhere, we don't break out a map. We turn on the GPS, we give it the coordinates or the address, and then we just turn our brains off. Should we stop using the GPS as much as possible and just reserve that for maybe long trip or something?
Well, I have to say, guilty as charged on that one. But I will say this. You bring up a good point. Learning and doing something unusual, like a lot of people say as you grow older, do crosswords. Learn a new language. Anytime you're challenged in your brain and you're learning, that's good for the brain.
What if like me, you have grandparents or parents ahead of you who have had serious brain disease like dementia or Alzheimer's? Do you think that doing anything now could help you in the long run, or do you think it's futile? Because honestly, I look at it like, if I'm going to get Alzheimer's, I'm going to get Alzheimer's. What's the point if I, read 3 books in a week or not,
Well, I disagree with you on that one. And let me tell you why. A big part of what we do at the Brain Performance Center is neurostimulation and neurofeedback therapy. And you can create regulation in that brain. I've worked with people that have the Alzheimer's, and it improves their quality of life. But the time to do that, to create that self-regulation, is before you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And and that's the problem. We wait till we're standing right in the middle of it before we do anything.
Well, I think a lot of times we're not thinking of it. It's one of those like, the future can't get me kind of thing. Since you don't know what's coming, you don't really pay attention to it. Whereas like if you had a tip off, like, oh, well, there's heart disease in my family, I should pay attention to my heart, or there's dementia, like I said, I should pay attention to that. A lot of times there are people who are diagnosed with these things that don't have any, formal history of having it in their family, but suddenly they are compromised by this.
You make an interesting point there, because a lot of research links that Alzheimer's to lack of sleep, to insomnia. And think about it this way. That brain's wiring and firing all day long, little neurons and dendrites. And while they're doing that, they're creating toxic waste. You've got these little glial cells that come out, and they're like those little scrubbing bubbles, They come out and they clean all that up. But they only come out when you're asleep.
So if you're not sleeping well, then you're not doing that cleanup. Okay.
That's not happening.
Wow.
So sleep is really a big foundation for our brain health.
Well, this is going to impact all my binge watching of Netflix. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
I just decreased your pleasure factor, huh?
You totally did. But it's probably worth it in the long run. Leigh Richardson, your website is thebrainperformancecenter.com. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.